All right, well, thank you for joining the Homestead Investment Cooperative webinar. We'd like to start by acknowledging that we stand on the traditional territories of the Nihio, Dene, Nakota Sioux, Anishinaabe, Niitsitapi, and within the Métis homeland under Treaty 6. This land, a historic gathering place for diverse Indigenous peoples, shapes our commitment to fostering innovation, cooperation, and shared growth. We honor the enduring presence and deep connection of Indigenous peoples to this land, drawing on their traditions of resilience, respect, and community to enrich our collective endeavors in Edmonton across Alberta. With gratitude, we embrace our responsibility to engage with reconciliation, respect Treaty 6, and cultivate partnerships that contribute to a legacy of mutual respect, understanding, and prosperity for all who share this land. And one of the main reasons why we just mentioned Treaty 6 for now is because that's where our first project is. And as we add more projects, we will expand our acknowledgement. So this is a presentation by the Homestead Investment Cooperative. It's an opportunity to invest in the first building in a portfolio of cooperatively owned Alberta real estate assets powered by co-working, starting on Edmonton's historic Jasper Avenue. Why did we look at investing through a community investment cooperative model? We get asked that question a lot. And some of the main reasons why we chose the cooperative model was for the local empowerment piece. So it attracts community-minded investors and people that want to invest in their own backyard and have a say in what happens with that investment. The shared prosperity, where all investors are treated the same and equally. And, all ships rise together in a cooperative model. The social impact. So we already, through the co-working piece, attract a lot of socially minded individuals and entrepreneurs and businesses. But through the co-working model, we support a lot of those businesses and provide a lot of give a lot back to the entrepreneurial community. But also through the cooperative model, we've made a lot of connections with social impact organizations across Canada, and we plan to expand upon that even more into the future. The democratic decision making, so one member, one vote aspect was attractive to us. So that's, if we really truly want this to be a community-minded investment, then we want all investors, small and large, to have a say and to be getting involved and engaged in the project. Greater political influence, many members of our board, but also members of our community have lots of connections and history of making change happen at different political levels. And when you're doing something innovative, you often have to go up against regulatory changes or policy changes within government. So in the future, if we need to, we have the ability to do that if we're trying to get something off the ground. And then long-term vision. So this is definitely a minimum 5-year investment window. We want investors that are here for the long haul and want to be with us through the growth of the organization. And we think that means a minimum 5-year investment hold. So just a little bit of background. It starts with myself, Tegan Martin-Drysdale. I started my real estate development company in 2012, and I wanted to make a difference in the development world in Edmonton and also uh, build a space or find a space that I could put my office in and grow my company in. And that's where I got introduced to co-working spaces. I was traveling across North America and looking at unique ways to build a company within a co-working space. And I realized I did not want to work alone at the time. I was just by myself and knew that as I added employees that I didn't want to just have a small office that was where people were working there alone. I wanted to build it in a community of like-minded people. So the co-working model was really attractive to me. There wasn't a co-working space at Edmonton at the time. So decided to create Homestead Coworking and then was looking for spaces to put our business in. And that's where the Alberta Block Building came to be. It was a historic building on Jasper Ave, an opportunity to do a bunch of value add and retrofit it and renovate it, and then also put my business in there alongside of a community of other businesses. So that's how the Homestead Coworking business came to be, as well as the Alberta Block project. And just post-COVID was looking at the project and thinking about the things that had not yet been done. So I bought the building with a private group of investors in late 2013, and we had plans to totally gut the building and renovate it and do an energy retrofit, which we did all of that. But there were still aspects like a rooftop patio that hadn't yet been done. And then the idea of bringing in an investment community. So that was part of the original vision, was to eventually have the building owned by a large group of community-minded investors. And that piece wasn't yet fully realized. And so Don was just ending his mayoral term, and we had to sit down around what type projects did downtown Edmonton need in its post-COVID revitalization, and how could Alberta Block play a part in that? And he jumped on board right away with the concept and idea. He really liked the tangible vision that Alberta Block presented, and the attraction that it had to community-minded investors, but also to supporting and building the entrepreneurial network in Edmonton. And so he joined me as one of the founding members of the Homestead Investment Cooperative. Since then, we've added additional board members. We got Jacqueline Cardinal, who's founder and CEO at Naheowen Storytelling and Education Social Enterprise, and she was actually one of the first members of Homestead Coworking. Kyla Kazale is co-owner of the Bamboo Ballroom, Bamboo Stockroom, Common 9910, and Foo's Repair Shop, which is one of our largest tenants in the building. They're located on the main floor of Alberta Block. And she joined us about 2 years ago when they were looking at moving into the building. And the reason why they were attracted to the building was because of this investment cooperative and the opportunity for them as a tenant to have an ownership piece in the building that they pay rent into. Then we have Heather Kirschbaumer, who's founder and CEO at Golden Acre Seed. She runs a fourth generation family farm in the Peace Country in Northern Alberta. Heather and I met because she lives close to where I live in Northern Alberta. And I was telling her about the project and the network that we were building across Alberta, and she was very much interested in joining it for not just diversifying her investment portfolio and real estate portfolio, because she has lots of other land holdings in Northern Alberta. And she wouldn't typically invest in places like Edmonton or, in the future Calgary. But having a group like this to invest with her really is attractive to her, as well as the networking piece and the people that she's going to meet through this opportunity. Then Marilyn Hooper, who has over 2 decades of experience in government, public relations, community engagement. She is a major networker and communicator and connector. And she's very much interested in this project because of her connection to CKUA and the history that they have in this building, because it was home to CKUA for over 60 years. And she remembers volunteering in this building and doing lots of events in this building, and it has a key connection to the history on Jasper Ave. Then we have Clifford Bell, who recently joined us. He's CEO of Westlock Terminals, a farmer-owned grain terminal co-op north of Edmonton. And they are one of the longest standing successful co-ops in Alberta as a community investment model. And, he came to the board to bring his expertise. He actually lives in downtown Edmonton, so he can see our project right from his downtown condo. And yeah, he really believes in the investment cooperative model, and he brings a wealth of experience in the operations of one already. Jane Hilderman, she's an entrepreneurial cross-sector leader with track record of social impact. She provides fractional support to foundations and startup nonprofits for short-term strategic initiatives. So she's a major connector for us in the social impact world, and is, yeah, a huge addition to our team in terms of all of the logistics and administration work on our board. Nicholas Menon is an engineer with over a decade of experience in billion-dollar capital projects. He brings a foundation in financial prudence, strategic planning, risk management, and large-scale asset development, and brings all of those areas of expertise to our board. So we have a full board now of 9 members. So a little bit more about the building. So you can see the black and white photo. That's early 1900s, or I guess it'd be mid 1900s with the car there. Probably just before CKUA took it over. It was actually home to one of the first locations of Alberta Treasury Branch. You can see the sign there at the top, and we found 5 old bank vaults actually in the building during our renovation. During the renovation, we completely gutted it back to structure. We did do some structural upgrades and brought in some glulam columns and beams to open up the floor plates so that tenants could have flexible demising wall locations. And then we brought in new insulation on the walls, new windows, new roof, new elevator, all new mechanical and electrical systems that were high energy efficiency so that we could really focus on low operational costs for our tenants and make sure that the building was really comfortable during like higher temperatures or lower temperatures, because that's always an issue with older heritage buildings. We also saw the opportunity for a rooftop patio. So that's the picture in the bottom right-hand corner. So that's something that we want to do as a cooperative is, after we finish the purchase of the building is to plan out and develop out that rooftop patio and make that an additional amenity for the tenants to help attract and retain tenants and add value to the building. It's currently leased with 9.8% vacancy, currently appraised at 8.85 million. And we've got a purchase agreement in place for 8.75 million. And then we have the opportunity to add the additional revenue by developing out that patio. And then there's also some additional basement square footage that can be turned into storage units. It's a little bit more about the market. It's the commercial real estate vacancies in downtown Edmonton are decreasing, which is positive, and that's due to some conversions to residential for some towers, as well as more companies moving back downtown. We currently have few opportunities for small investors to participate in ownership of commercial real estate in Edmonton, and no other opportunities in downtown Edmonton that I'm aware of. Because downtown Edmonton, usually those buildings are owned by high net worth private investors or the REITs. And the area has seen increased investment in multiple catalyst projects, including Warehouse Park, which is just half a block away from our building. So we see this business model as being cyclical, and if we create a strong co-op community, that's going to attract stronger tenants through our networks, which then builds a stronger building as those tenants build their businesses in the building, which then builds a stronger co-op community. So the relationships are very cyclical and they will build on each other over time. We know that we will focus on growing companies. We've already seen that through the co-working model. We've seen companies come in and start at a small desk and then grow up and out of our space in our building, or sometimes take on a main lease with the building itself and not with the co-work. So it definitely helps foster and grow companies, create peer mentorship network with our members and our investors, make a major contribution to economic revitalization, create wealth for our investors and tenants, and expand them all to other communities, and then connect with social enterprises across Canada. How will we build revenue? So our main source of revenue is just with the tenant leases in the building, and then focusing on helping grow those businesses and support them so that they can continue to pay rent and stay in our building, and then potentially allow us to grow to other buildings with those tenants in hand. We'll be doing ticketing for premium professional development events like future speaker series and conferences. We've done some in the past and we plan to do more in the future. Eventually, brokerage fees for spaces that tenants graduate to that we can't accommodate those tenants for. So if our tenants are outgrowing our spaces in the building and we're referring them to other landlords, in the future, we would like to collect brokerage fees for that. Space rentals on the future amenities, and future real estate acquisitions. So this is the first project of many, and we plan to expand to other areas in Edmonton, but also other cities and other towns, even rural towns across Alberta. Wherever there's a clear, stable market or growing market, and we have strong investment interest. So this is currently a $9 million deal structure. We have two scenarios for the raise. One is to raise 100% of the capital through private investment. And this is just because when you're doing an offering memorandum, we were asked to create a minimum and a maximum raise scenario. This scenario one, where we raise 100%, would allow for the fastest expansion to the next building. It is an unlikely scenario, but it was one that we needed to put in the OM. Scenario 2 was raise the funds through private investment, but finance the balance up to 4.375 million with a commercial mortgage. So that's the much more realistic scenario. That's a slower growth model because we won't have necessarily excess funds after we close on this building to go buy other buildings. So those future buildings would have to be done through a future raise again, but that's okay. That both scenarios would work. And we're also currently in discussions with lenders about potentially reducing the amount of private investment needed and increasing the amount of commercial mortgage that we could obtain. So that's currently in the works. So it's structured with 3 classes of shares. One is the Class A membership share. That's to join the cooperative. It's a $250 one-time fee. And then you can choose from one of 2 investment shares. Class B investment shares at $10,000 minimum, and you can go up in $1,000 increments. Or Class C investment shares, which is a $100,000 minimum, and you can go up in $5,000 increments. Class C investors do get to appoint a board member to the board to represent the Class C investors because, we knew that there could be a risk that there would be all Class B investors, which would be smaller investors, making key decisions without a Class C investor representative. So we decided to reserve one key position on the board for that Class C representative, and all the Class C investors would host a vote at around the AGM date to vote in who would be their representative to sit on the board. And that's just to make sure that they have eyes and ears on the operations and the strategies that are being implemented, as well as having their business acumen and investment acumen at the table would be highly valuable. These investments are RSP and TFSA eligible. So that can be through an existing RSP and TFSA, or you can create and invest cash into a new one. It's all registered through the Canadian Workers Co-op Federation. And they host all of the RSP and TFSA registrations for all cooperatives across Canada. And it's treated very much similar to investing in an RSP and TFSA within a financial institution. The projected annual returns based on the leases is at least 6%, and that does not include appreciation in the building's value over time. So that's just from the cash flows. A little bit more background on the founders. So we're serving as the initial board. We've fronted all costs to date and committed 280,000 in share purchases. That's actually, both those numbers have been increased, so those will get updated here shortly. We do not receive management fees for putting the deal together, but instead receive some shares for our substantial efforts only if we close on the building, and that's all disclosed in the offering memorandum. It's 1 member, 1 vote at general meetings, and we currently have 9 directors. That's the full size of the board. We didn't want to have a board that was too large to start with, just for management purposes, but that can always be changed in the bylaws later. So your role as an investor is to join our mentor community, and mostly to, right now, because we're in the middle of a big raise, refer like-minded tenants, mentors, and investors. We're growing our investor network right now. That is our main focus. So as we add in new investors, they hopefully have networks that they can bring in as well to attract like-minded people to our network. And participate in 1 member, 1 vote general meetings to make key strategic decisions with the co-op community. So we also offer discounts as an incentive to our investors, and that was just to get, to recognize the early adopters and make sure that the people with their money in first were getting, these rewards. So the first 1 million raised received a 4% discount, and that's closed. We have reached our 1 million, and we're actually closing in on our second million, so coming up to 2 million here, and currently the 2% discount is offered. After we reach 2 million, then there'll no longer be a discount offered to the first investors. We also wanted to reward the first 100 investors into the project that are really helping build the organization and achieve this first goal with our first building. So the first 100 member investors receive recognition in a prominent place in Alberta Block, likely the lobby. They'll also receive an original H100 keepsake for display in their home or office. And we are also offering other investor perks like drop-in pass available at Homestead Cowork Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, as well as 10% off food and 20% off event bookings at Foods. And we hope to add to this list of benefits to our H100 investors as well as time goes on. So just an overall summary, I'll just touch on the pieces here that was not talked about. Rights on dissolution, proportionate share of net assets after liabilities, dividends and patronage. So board of directors to issue on investment shares based on annual operating results. So that would be announced at the AGM. I mentioned in the beginning the time horizon expectation is minimum 5 years before redemption, unless under extraordinary circumstances. But there are other ways that you can exit if you need to before 5 years. So redemption is when you are selling your shares back to the co-op as a whole. So that can only occur after 5 years. But before 5 years and after 4 months after you receive the shares, you can actually sell your shares to an existing investor member, or you can bring in a new investor to buy your shares, all with board approval, of course, but that's some ways that give you a chance to exit before the 5-year mark if you need to. The use of the funds raised. So with the minimum raise scenario, we would be putting a $4.375 million building down payment down, and $150,000 would go to closing costs, and $100,000 would be set aside for working capital for the first few years. For the maximum raise scenario, we would purchase the building outright with $8.75 million, and then have the same $150,000 closing costs and $100,000 working capital. One key thing to mention is that all funds are held in trust until the building sale closes. So if we, for whatever reason, do not close on the building, then the funds will get returned to the investors. I mentioned that it's RSP and TFSA eligible through the Canadian Workers Cooperative Federation. And if you have any questions about that, we can certainly answer that. And then closing. So this current offering is open until November 3rd, with the building sale closing December 31st. We did just agree to extend that by a few more weeks as we are talking with lenders about financing structures and options. So we will be updating this by next Monday. But we are putting a lot of pressure just to get in the investment funds that are currently in the works and people that are interested in investing now. Because as we talk to lenders, they want to know where our investment's at. And the more that we can update with them, the higher the chance we can place financing. So why does this matter? So we believe in Edmonton and Alberta. That's one of the reasons why Homestead Coworking exists and the Alberta Block project exists. It's been a beacon for a lot of entrepreneurs and innovators and builders and creators over the last 10 years that it's been in operations. We see this as a huge opportunity for an investment network to be built across Alberta to invest in projects like this and to expand projects like this to other areas of Alberta and create that strong network as well as a strong real estate portfolio that we hold. And I'm talking about me personally now. I plan to hold this investment for at least 10 to 20 years. I see it as a legacy project for my children and future grandchildren. And because I know that as time goes on, commercial real estate will become more and more difficult to purchase, especially for smaller investors. So if you're interested in investing, the next step would be to sign up for our investor portal. We've created an online portal where you can download all of the due diligence documents, such as the building appraisal and condition report, the offering memorandum, cash flow projections. And once you've reviewed that, you can hit the Invest Now button for Class B or Class C shares. And you can set up a call with us if you have any questions. We highly recommend touring the building because the building speaks for itself in terms of all the upgrades that were done and the investment and the quality and the longevity of the building. And you can see all the tenants that are operating in there and the beautiful spaces that have been built out. And you can set up tours by emailing us, or we have regular open houses Wednesday and Thursday from 4:30 to 6 o'clock, where you can just drop in. And we are also having a larger open house this next week on Tuesday, which is October, or not October, we're into November now, November 4th. It's going to be from 4 to, I think, 6 o'clock. And we'll have some board members there. I'll be there in attendance, and we'll be doing this presentation, and we'll also be having some of our existing investors come out so you can meet the investment group that we're building. So now I'll open it up for questions. You can put them in the chat or you can ask them. I'll also, while you're thinking about what questions you might have, I'll speak to just some of the frequently asked questions that we get from time to time. So I mentioned how to sell your shares in the co-op before the 5-year mark. And if you want to get your money out earlier, one of the benefits for investors outside of Edmonton. So I reference Heather a lot when I think about outside investors. And she's also an older investor. Her motivations are the network she's connecting with, the ability to expand and diversify her real estate portfolio to a market that she's not living in and necessarily familiar with, but she sees the opportunity in places like Edmonton and Calgary and larger urban centers. She wants to actually gift some of her investment down the road to her grandchildren and have it part of a real estate portfolio for them. So lots of motivations there. How does this differ from a GIC or a REIT? It's a very different investment model. But mostly, I think one of the biggest differences is the say that you have as an investor. You get to vote at annual general meetings. You'll get opportunities to join our committees and working groups that we create as we build this out, and give inputs there, as well as join the board in the future when vacancies come available. So, you have the option to just, be hands off and just get the reporting and maybe attend an AGM annually and have minimal involvement, all the way to more extensive involvement if you wish, if you want to get more involved and actually take on board positions or volunteer positions. What is the next addition to the portfolio? So we do get asked that a lot if we have other buildings in mind, and we've had some buildings presented to us, but we see this first one as a critical first piece that we need to successfully achieve. And then we can get to making a 5-year strategic plan. So once we close on the building and we know our investment group and we know how much dollars we have raised, we'll be creating a 5-year strategic plan to outline the next strategic locations that we'll expand to. And we'll be looking at things like market factors and like where's the market stabilized or growing. We'll be looking at where we see demand for tenants, and we might have tenants approaching us to do this in their local community, as well as where's our investment community concentrated. So we know that success will come from where we have boots on the ground and investors and tenants that are engaged and wanting to make a project successful. So factors like that will come in to where we decide to go next, as well as, investors will be able to bring opportunities to us that we can vet, and we'll create a list of criteria for those projects to determine if we want to bring them to the larger community. So I think that covers a lot of typical questions we get, but yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them now. And I see that Chris has put into the chat just more information on our event coming up, I think. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining. Definitely reach out to us if any questions come up in the future, especially as you're going through the due diligence documents. And we definitely encourage you to come out to one of our events or book a tour with us. So just reach out to us over email or phone. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ross.